Tuesday, March 26, Bringing in the Sheaves. Read Psalm 126. What gives strength and hope to God's people? What is being said here, in this context, that we can apply to our own lives today? Psalm 126. When the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. The Lord's miraculous deliverances in the past are an inexhaustible source of inspiration for God's people and their source of hope for the future. The past deliverance was so great that it could be described as a dream-come-true experience, as you read in Isaiah 29, verses 7 and 8. The multitude of all the nations who fight against Ariel, even all who fight against her and her fortress and distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision. It shall even be as when a hungry man dreams, and look, he eats, but he awakes, and his soul is still empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreams, and look, he drinks, but he awakes, and indeed he is faint, and his soul still craves. So the multitude of all the nations shall be who fight against Mount Zion. Notice that the generation that praises the Lord in Psalm 126 for his past deliverance of his people from captivity in verse 1 is presently in captivity, as we saw in verse 4. Yet the past joy and relief are relived through songs and appropriated in present experiences. The new generations keep biblical history alive by counting themselves as present among those who saw the events firsthand. Thus, a living faith cherishes God's great deeds for his people in the past as something that the Lord has done for us, and not simply things that the Lord did only for them, the past generations of believers. In fact, the memory of the past spurs renewed hope for the present. The image of the streams in the south in verse 4 of Psalm 126 is a powerful metaphor of God's acting suddenly and powerfully on behalf of his people. The very south of Judah was an arid desert region. The streams were formed suddenly and filled with rushing water after heavy rainfalls during the rainy season. The early and late rains played a crucial role in the success of the agricultural year. As you read in Deuteronomy 11:14, "Then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your grain, your new wine, and your oil." And Deuteronomy 28, verse 12, "The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow." Similarly, the image of sowing in tears and reaping in joy, as we read in Psalm 126, verses 5 and 6, is a powerful promise of divine leading from a difficult present to a happy future. The end of the harvest season was the time when the ancient Hebrew pilgrimages brought the fruits of the season to God's temple in Jerusalem, as we read in Exodus 34, verses 22 and 26. Verse 22, "And you shall observe the Feast of Weeks of the firstfruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end." And verse 26, "The first of the firstfruits of your land you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk." The harvest motif provided a potent spiritual lesson to the people at that time. Just as the hard labour of sowing and caring for the fields, orchards and vineyards is rewarded with the joy of plentiful harvest, so the present trials of God's people will be crowned with the joy of salvation at the end of time. The image of the great harvest points to God's restoration of his kingdom on earth at Christ's second coming. As you read in Amos 9, verses 13 to 15, "Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when the ploughman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes, him who sows seed. The mountains shall drip with sweet wine, and all the hills shall flow with it. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them. They shall also make gardens and eat fruit from them. I will plant them in their land, and no longer shall they be pulled up from the land I have given them, says the Lord your God." And then Matthew 9, verse 37, "Then he said to his disciples, The harvest truly is plentiful, but the labourers are few." Here too, however, the theme of waiting arises. As with the harvest, we must wait to see the fruit and results of our labour. And so to finish today, dwell on some times when you clearly and unmistakably saw the Lord working in your life or in the lives of others. How can you draw hope from those experiences for whatever you might be going through now? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.